Okay, there we go. I'm back. Sorry. I wonder if anybody can hear whenever I turn the air on, because it is burning hot in here. Let's see if I get any feedback here. Seems to be good. I'm just going to try this. This time there may be a little bit of buzz in the background, but that's okay. I don't care, because it is too hot in here. And I don't want to start sweating, because I start sweating and then I start falling apart. Okay, here we go. Welcome to session 40 of Through Theology in a Year. I'm Michael Patton, and we're going to be talking today about the issue of certainty. I'm really glad to have you guys. This one is going to be one of those, I think it'll really reach out to a lot of you all, because in my experience, I find most people go wrong. You can go wrong with the concentric circle and have not have a hierarchy. You either believe something or you don't. That's one thing. And you think it's just as important as everything else. That's one. But another thing we have in the same kind of category, but it is very different and it affects you differently, is this issue of certainty. How certain do you have to be of your beliefs, or how certain should we expect to be of our beliefs? So that's what we're going to talk about here today. I'm glad to have you all. Here is the way in which, let's see here. Let me get this, put this up there. This is the way which you support if you want to support. This is the place you go to. This is my Patreon. This is where, this is the majority of it comes through. Although you can go to credoministries.org if you want to give a tax-deductible donation. Would love to have you. Got all kinds of things going on. In a lot of need right now of some money, about $1,000. That is what we're behind. That's what I'm behind here in this ministry. So please, if you can, give. Go to credoministries.org, give straight there, or go to Patreon. Either way, it would be great. Thank you so much. That is enough of that. Let's see here. Can I get this gone? Nope. Let's do that. And that didn't make that go away, but I can make it go away. Where is it at? Image. Nope. Credo Ministries. Nope. Patreon logo. There we go. That needs to be inside of that. Let me do this again. I'm going to say about the Patreon again. If I can figure this out. Okay. That work? Yeah, there we go. Oh, man. See, it's already sweating. Don't forget, you can support me on Patreon. That's the place where I get the support from. It would be great to have you. It'd be great to have you in our community at Patreon. You get all kinds of free goodies. There's all kinds of levels that you can support at as well. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, please support at Patreon. We're also in need right now. I'm also in need of $1,000. That is, it seems like every month I'm coming up with this, but this is the life in the ministry. But $1,000 is what I need. So if you want to give directly to the ministry, you can go to the Patreon, and you can see on the very first post, it gives you all the ways to give. Or you can just go directly to credoministries.org, but there's more options on the Patreon. So click on the Patreon, look at the first post. It will say ways to give. It's open to everybody, of course, and that is the way to figure out which way you want to give. You can give anyway, tax deductible, or there's a few different ways there. Okay, we're going to talk about issues of certainty. Okay, and here's the deal. Okay, let me see if I can get this done. Here's the deal. We normally build our theology, and I've said this before, but we build our theology like a house of cards, especially in traditions that are more conservative. As a matter of fact, it's very hard for me to find someone who doesn't build their theology like this right there. Okay, that is the reason why I use house of cards, is because the whole idea is not only you got to have all your doctrines in place, and if sometimes somebody comes and takes one away, you quit believing it, your whole house of cards falls, but also just the issue of certainty can do this. It's like, I'm not quite so sure anymore about this particular doctrine. Well, let me tell you something. Here's the deal. join the club. All of us have issues of certainty. I know you may be sitting there and you may be saying, Michael, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're teaching people here, but I am absolutely 100% certain that what I believe is true. I'm not trying to challenge you so much as just to make you think. Okay, here's what I usually tell people about this. When we're talking about certainty, can you believe more, let's just say, tomorrow than you did today? Is it possible for you, or is your faith perfect? And if you've read the New Testament at all and seen what Paul says about his faith not being perfect, you would have to say that your faith is not perfect. You can grow in your faith. You can become more convicted of the truth today than you did yesterday. But you also can become less convicted about certain things. There are things which you will start to doubt, and it's not a bad thing to doubt. That's part of the theological process. That's part of what you have to sign up for. If you don't sign up for that, if you don't open yourself up to the possibility of doubting something, then you're really not going to grow, because what you're going to do is you're going to take whatever it is that your parents taught you, right? And you're going to put that in the center circle. You're not going to have a hierarchy of beliefs, and you're also not going to have a hierarchy of doubt. You believe all those things, you believe in God, the existence of, or the pre-tribulationalist rapture, just as much as you believe in the existence of God. You believe in Calvinism just as much as you believe in the resurrection of Christ. If you say that, if you do believe that, then I don't, it's not that I don't believe you, it's just that I don't think you're referring to the same thing as me. I'm not saying you don't have an emotional commitment to something. Emotional commitments to things do not equate to certitude. Certitude is different than emotional commitments. And the reason why I say that is this. You may come in here and say, Michael, I am a Christian, but I'm only 1% sure that it's true. Okay, you're 1%. Make a commitment based upon that. If you don't make a commitment based upon that 1%, if you are not moving in the direction that 1% pulls you, then you're moving in the direction that the other side pulls you, whatever is the opposite, whether it's 0 or negative. You have a negative one about this faith in your certainty. Well, if you do not make a commitment, you are staying at 0. If you have a 1, you have faith. Christ tells us that the faith the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain. He talks about the apostles, O ye of little faith. And I bet you they really got messed up by that a little bit. What do you mean, us of little faith? We believe you. But there are certain people in the Bible that stand out and they say, I believe, help my unbelief. Or like the apostles at times, we don't really have anywhere else to go. We're not sure about this, but at the same time, you're the best we got. And sometimes in our belief system, with individual beliefs, it is the best we got. And I'm sorry to say that, but that is true. Number one, the Bible is not as clear about every single doctrine. It is not as clear, and then it doesn't give as much grounding for it either. Sometimes the Bible says things, and it's pretty hard to, like, if you can't explain it to somebody, if you can't tell them, here's the reason why I believe this, and they're offering the objections, then I would say that it's somewhere in the middle, probably. You've got to loosen the grip on these types of things as well, your certainty. And one of the things that I do a lot of, and I've told you guys this a lot, is that I am continually talking to people who doubt their faith. I went through doubt. I went through pretty significant doubt back in 2010. And ever since then, no, even before that, I had a passion for this. I think it was because I was insecure in my faith and I didn't want to admit to it. And so that's the reason why I used to be so obsessed with people who doubt, people who do not have certainty. And I'd say, why in the world do these people doubt their faith? Why did these people leave their faith? And I think whenever I look back, I think I was scared, because I think deep down inside, I knew my faith wasn't perfect, but I thought it was. I thought you either believe or you don't. There's no certainty. There's no grid. There's no hierarchy of certainty. And so I think the insecurity drove me to try to figure out why it happened to these other people, because I wanted to know whether it was going to happen to me. And you know what? That's not bad. It's not bad. It's okay. It really is. Because what we do with our faith, as the seed is planted in the ground, for the rest of our lives, it goes through trials and tribulations and troubles and morphing many times, especially if it's growing. It goes through change. But that is okay. That's what's supposed to happen. At the end of the day, whenever you still have your faith in Christ, at the end of the day, whenever you still believe that you're a sinner and he's your only hope and you have nowhere else to go, let me tell you something. That's a big deal. You're still a Christian. Whether you believe you can lose your salvation or not, I don't happen to believe that you can lose true faith, but that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that we all go through this. We all go through uncertainty, even over the most significant things. So that's what we're going to talk about here today is uncertainty and certainty. So doubt and certainty. So let's go over here and let's go to this question. How certain are you? This is the question that I have for you right now. How certain are you that your beliefs are true? How certain, that's not going to work. How certain are you that your beliefs are true? How are you, put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How certain? And you may say, I'm a 10. Well, which beliefs? Which beliefs are you that certain about? Is there anything you're more certain about and less certain about? That's the question I want to ask you. And is there different types of certainty that you guys have? Is there different types of certainty that you all have? You've got to ask yourself this question because there are different types of certainty. Okay, and so let's look at the types of certainty. And then let's look at the rise and fall of the Christian faith, or of certainty, and the new faith. The rise and fall of certainty and the new faith. The sources of certainty and a hierarchy of certainty, building that. Okay, so terminology. A few terms, just hang with me. These are easy. These are ones you already know. These are ones you have every single day. You already use them, but I'm just applying them to this issue and helping you understand whenever you're doing theology, these are the different types of certainty that we're looking at, okay? Okay, so first one, we're talking about conviction. The strength and intensity of one's belief regardless of one's ability to justify said belief. Okay, that's really important because you have conviction. Conviction is the strength and intensity of one's belief regardless of one's ability to justify said belief. You may have conviction about something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is certainty because conviction itself is an emotion. It's built purely off emotion. Now you can move conviction around. You can get conviction to where that is in a hierarchy, and we need to. But at the same time, usually when we start, we're either convicted of something or we're not, and we don't see any gradation. We need to see a gradation in our conviction because it's so important for us whenever we are fellowshipping with other people to understand that there's a variety of conviction going on around all of you. Every single person you're fellowshipping with, everybody has different levels of conviction about things, and you have to allow that freedom. If you don't allow that freedom in church, if you don't allow that freedom in your fellowship, if you don't allow that freedom with your friends that are Christians, there's going to be pressure to conform every single time you get together. And it's not going to look good. It's not what the church is supposed to look like. Not everybody's supposed to look like each other. Everybody's supposed to love Jesus Christ. Everybody's supposed to find him as their only way. And then beyond that, there's a lot of gradation. There's a lot of things God's putting people through. There's a lot of levels of conviction for various reasons. And you're there to help. You're part of the body. But at the same time, you're not there to require or look down upon somebody who has less conviction than you about certain things, because that is going to happen. And you're not there to try to keep your conviction level up so that you look good. If that's your situation, you've got to be careful. That may not be the best fellowship for you to be involved in, or at very least, be the one, be the pioneer, be the one who is brave enough to express your different levels of conviction. Then there's certitude. Certitude is different than conviction. Certitude is a strong assurance or conviction that something is true, regardless of the source for rational rationale for said certitude. So it's like conviction, but this has to do with an assurance. It has a deeper element to it. Certitude says basically there is some type of reason. Okay, regardless of the reason, here's why I believe this. This is where we're getting to kind of from moving from the heart to the mind. Conviction is with the heart, certitude is more with the mind. Try to think of it that way as we move through here. Whether you believe it that way or not, normally, keep it that way as we move through here, and it will be helpful. And then you have epistemic certitude, and this is focusing on justification, emphasizing well-founded reasons and evidence for belief. So we're moving up further into the brain, but we're being more responsible. Epistemic certitude means you have a good reason. You can justify it. What's your epistemic certitude towards that? Once you get to that level, then you start recognizing there are different levels of certitude. There's different levels of conviction based upon that certitude. So that's the next one. Next one is indubitable certitude. Now, this is where we get back to some type of problematic area, and this is where we go back to last lesson with Rene Descartes, looking for something that we can be that we don't ever doubt. Indubitable, kind of like mathematics. 2 + 2 = 4, indubitably. A triangle has 3 sides, indubitably. Then you say, well, I guess we can get to this level of certitude with everything. That's not true. It's not true. And there is, like I said, variation beyond that. Mathematics, analytical statements, that is different than what we're talking about here. There's not really much that has to do with mathematics or analytical statements, except possibly the existence of God, which I happen to believe that is it. I do believe that the existence of God you can be just as certain about, but we'll talk about that later whenever we get to the arguments for the existence of God. But beyond that, it's very difficult. You could do like Rene Descartes and say, I think, therefore I am, so you could have absolute certitude, indubitable certitude about your own existence, which I think is justified. But there's only certain things that you can have indubitable, beyond a doubt. So whenever you talk to people and you say, oh, it's beyond a doubt, you got to think about that, especially in theological discussions, because you can mislead people, you can lose your audience, you can you can be talking to somebody and they could say, oh, these people just overstate everything. They're insecure. Because when we overstate, you are insecure. Overstatement is a sign of insecurity. Overstatement is an absolute, complete sign of your own insecurity. See, I'm trying to do an overstatement, but it really doesn't work on that since I'm talking about this. But whenever you talk about, I am absolutely certain, there's not a doubt in my mind. Okay, that means basically you have committed yourself emotionally to this belief, and therefore there's no way to change your mind because of a conviction you have decided to have about this, because in the end, I'm sorry, because of an insecurity. Now, I know I may be making some of you all comfortable, but it's okay. Don't worry about it, okay? We have to get to this, because as we go through every single doctrine throughout this entire year, and I'm giving you the evidence on each side, we're reading the Bible whenever one person believes this way and one person believes this way, and here's the evidence on this side, and here's the evidence on this side. I need you to consider all options. I really do. Even whenever I want you to be on my side, that's not my goal. My goal is to make you think through these things. My goal is to help you have this academic, no, that's not a good way. This level of engagement with what it is that you believe that forces you to have grace, because you understand how hard it is. You understand that certain things are really, really hard, and we are not real sure about them. Therefore, I am not going to press this issue too far. Therefore, I am not going to make this draw a line in the sand of fellowship and say, I'm not fellowshipping with you unless you believe in the 6-day creation just like I do. For God's sake, not believe that. I mean, you may believe in it, but you can't be certain. You can't be, and you just can't, You weren't there. There's no reason for you to be certain. The Bible says this, and you may say, hey, I'm absolutely certain the Bible is true. And therefore, this is true. My interpretation's right. How can you be certain about that? How can you be that certain? What about the Bible? You have just made a commitment, and that's good. I'm not saying we don't make initial commitments. We don't have a certain level of certainty and say, okay, I'm committed. It's kind of like this. Think of this. You get married. Okay? Whenever you get married, you look at your spouse or your potential spouse and you evaluate them. You say, I wonder how this will be. I wonder if we're going to make a good match. I wonder, would she ever leave me? Is she ever going to cheat on me? Whatever. Okay. You have all these questions, but at some point, even with the uncertainty of the future, you make a commitment. Okay. And that commitment, you can have 5% certainty with 100% commitment. I'm not saying any of us have 100% commitment, but I have no problem with commitment based upon certitude. Okay, that is it. You can have that really, really high, but just because your commitment's high doesn't automatically mean your certainty is high. You get it? There's a difference. Okay, your wife may cheat on you. She may leave you. She may take all your money. She may already be married. I don't know. You just go there, and whenever you make that commitment, you're all in. That's kind of the idea. We go all in for the Lord the best we can at the time. And that's what we do at marriage. We go all in the best we can do at the time, and then we realize as we're growing, as marriage is growing, how difficult sometimes going all in certain areas is, and the compromises that have to be made. But in ministry, that's it. We can make commitments. This is my point. In Christianity, you can make a commitment without having a complete certainty. It's nicer to have certainty. You want to try to build that. But at the same time, whenever you have some degree of certainty, it's worth the commitment. It really is. Because otherwise, you're committing to the opposite of what you are certain about by not committing. Okay? Get it? Okay. All right, now right here, absolute certainty. This indubitable certainty means I can do it without a doubt. Absolute certainty is whenever you have the highest level. It's where a belief, proposition is considered completely and unquestionably true, often applied to mathematical or logical truths. Okay, so that's kind of like indubitable. I sometimes use indubitable and absolute. I forgot I put those two different because indubitable just means it's beyond the ability to doubt. Doesn't necessarily mean it's absolutely certain. So those you can use interchangeably. I probably should have just kept those one as indubitable, but that's okay. Okay, look at all these. You have conviction, you have certitude, you have epistemic certitude, you have indubitable certitude, and you have absolute certitude. This is all part of epistemic. Epistemic. Remember, we're in epistemology. Epistemic terminology. We're talking about epistemic certainty, types of that. So keep that in mind. It's important just to see how people think about this stuff whenever they have to get into a deeper level of studies. You have to begin to place yourself here and be honest with yourself. So what types of certainty? Here we go. Here's definition of certainty in Webster's dictionary. Fixed, sure to come or happen, inevitable, established beyond a doubt or question, indisputable, capable of being relied upon or dependable, having or showing confidence or assured. That is the different types of certainty that the Webster's dictionary gives us. But there's not just one type, right? I mean, it's just not one or the other. Okay, so let me talk specifically about the types of certainty that you and I display. Okay, I've kind of alluded to this, but I want to get very specific. Okay, you've got emotional certainty. You've got absolute certainty, you've got intellectual certainty, and you've got moral certainty. Emotional certainty is that which I've talked about beforehand, those things that we usually just commit to because mom and dad committed to it. It's true because I know it's true. Whatever you're saying, listen, I just know that I know that I, somebody asks you, how do you know this? And you say, I just know that I know. Well, really, how do you know? Listen, just deep down in my heart, I know that I know that I know. Do you ever have beliefs like that kind of thing? Listen, I'm so sorry, but that's part of insecurity. That's what we do. At least consider what I'm saying. You may know that you know that you know that you know, but that's not a reason for it. And that's just kind of going into hiding. That's going into hiding with regard to your intellect and using your mind. And God says, love me with all of your heart. There you go, the emotions, and all of your mind. There you go, the intellect. And you've got to have the heart based upon what the mind is convicted of. The mind needs to be convicted. You can't have your heart convicting your mind. If your heart convicts your mind, it has no rationale to convict your mind. But that's usually what happens, the reverse. We believe things because deep down in our heart, we want them to be true. And we are certain of them because deep down, we know it, and we know that we know. Okay? That's, and I'm sorry if there's any Mormons watching this, but that's the Mormon type way. That's all they've got. Whenever they present the Book of Mormon to you, and you say to them, hey, listen, how do you know this is true? 99% of them, although a lot of Christians will do this too, but 99% of them will open up their book and read to you a passage that says, if you are uncertain about this, if you're not sure about whether or not that which is written in this Book of Mormon is true, pray and God will give you a burning in your bosom. There's a burning in thy bosom. And it's like, okay, what is a burning in your bosom? That's just emotion. Okay. And so you look for it, and you can self-produce emotion. It's really easily. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, God gave this to me, as if it's some type of miracle. Emotions are fickle. Our emotions are all over the place. You don't have your mind conform to your emotions or your heart. You have your heart conform to your mind. As Jonathan Edwards says, the heart will not, the mind will not believe, the heart will not believe what the mind ultimately rejects. And that is true. Ultimately, it'll fall apart one way or another. And if it doesn't, that's even worse, because you just live your whole life off of this faulty veneer certainty that you've never really examined or allowed gradation in. And whenever it does happen, whenever it finally does happen, somebody calls me up and says, Michael, listen, I hear you deal with people who doubt. I'm doubting my faith. I say, tell me what happened. And they usually tell me something. You know, it's some little trigger that happens. And that's all it takes usually at this point, is a trigger. Because whenever you have your heart and your mind so distant, you want it to be true, but in your mind, you're hearing stuff all the time that you can't answer. This is called, we came up with a word for it in the last century, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is where you have your mind that you really don't believe something that you're practicing. You really don't believe something that you're committed to. Deep down inside, you know you're wrong, or at least you think you may be wrong, but you're too scared to go examine it. We've got to release this as we move forward. If you don't have this down, don't move forward in this, because all you're going to be doing every single week is waiting for me. Every single day is waiting for me to confirm your prejudice. Not to help you to think through things. I'm going to be wrong about a lot. I have a lot of convictions that are wrong. I have a lot of convictions that I'm too high on or too low on. But this is the process. This is why we go through this. This is why we have through Theology in a Year. And I'm doing this every day because I want to be here with you guys as you go through it. I love Christ. I believe Christ rose from the dead. I believe in the same God you do, and I have no other hope. You and I have no other hope. We are united in that. Now let's move forward and start putting together the way it is we believe in the way it is that we can truly be convicted and have a responsible, have the ability to responsibly look back and say, my convictions were well-founded, or at least I tried. And then let me tell you something else that'll happen. What happens at this point is people see that intellectual honesty. Once they see that intellectual honesty, there will be those type of people that you could not witness to before with your false certainty. I know I'm jumping on a lot of people because so many people are like this. Just please stay with me. You will be able to witness to people because people will see your transparency whenever you say, well, I'm not really sure about this. Here's what I believe about this, but this over here, no, I could be wrong. Whenever you have that kind of attitude about things, whenever you move forward in your faith like that, some people, you may get kicked out of your church. You may get kicked. The more conservative and fundamentalist you are, the more they will look at you and say, you need to find some other place because you don't fit in here. you need to get in that place kind of toward the middle where everybody's wrestling with stuff. Everybody's wrestling, but they all believe the same thing. I remember, going to these conferences sometimes. You go to, whenever you're in the world of theology like I am, you go to these conferences, and there's different kinds of conferences. And they're all really good. Lots of them are better than others, but there's all these conferences, and they're talking about Christ. They're talking about the Bible. And there's a lot of very, very liberal people at some of these conferences, like liberal scholars, people who study the Bible nonstop. That's their job. They actually love it, but at the same time, they're not believers. But there's also very liberal people over here who study the Bible all the time, and they seem to have the right beliefs, at least in most things. And I remember talking to Dan Wallace one time about this, saying, what do we do, with the Society of Biblical Literature and Evangelical Theological Society and how different some of these things are? He said, listen, Michael, here's what it comes down to, is I've really learned to be able to be okay with somebody as long as they say they believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ, because that makes them different. You get it? Whenever you go to these liberal things, there'll be people who don't believe in the inspiration of Scripture. They doubt the pastoral epistles that they should be in the Bible. Timothy, 1st and 2nd Timothy, and Titus, and they're like, "No, I'm not sure about those. I don't really think that those are inspired." And then all of a sudden, you're like, "What?" It's you get it all or nothing. But these people will have a gradation throughout. But whenever they are at these places and they say they believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ, I'm telling you, that is true. There's no pressure for them to do it because they fellowship among a bunch of liberals. And it's really interesting because since Dan told me this 15, 20 years ago, I have thought about it. And I thought, you know what? This is exactly true. There is a difference in the world of scholarship. Whenever you have people that confess the bodily resurrection of Christ, everything else kind of follows differently. And then whenever you have people that deny the bodily resurrection of Christ, it is completely different as well. And so there's a gradation all throughout all of Christian scholarship of people who are more certain about some things than others. But there's also this thing that separates them. And it's just one thing, and it's just one conviction. And it doesn't mean the conviction is as high as it could be, but they do believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ. Now, of course, as I said last time, it's their own sinfulness as well. And I know that there are people who can believe in the bodily resurrection of Christ, but never have really repented because they don't see themselves as sinful, or they have not felt that, that need. But at the same time, in these circles, most of them, if they're confessing they believe this, they believe it, because they have nothing to gain by it. Normally in these liberal circles, it's better for you not to believe things. Okay, so I'm going forever. Okay, this has been an introduction to certainty. Let me see what I got next here. Okay, this has been an introduction to it. And next time what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of the different levels of certainty. The reason why I don't do it now is because it's going to take a while. And we're going to go through it. I'm going to start showing you where I'm certain, where I'm not. Not to get you to have the same convictions I do about this, but to get you to see that you can have different convictions. And there are some things that are less clear. And since they're less clear, they require us to hold on to them a whole lot looser. Not that we can't be committed to it, but at the same time, we've got to recognize some things God just was not clear about. And it's okay. There are some things that we'll all grab onto, and every one of us are holding on to for dear life. And that is great. That is the fellowship. That's where we all come together. That's the theological center of both the hierarchy of beliefs and then the hierarchy of certainty. That's what we're doing. We're saying, here's the main thing, and I'm not letting go of this thing. I may be able to could climb this rope a little bit more, but I'm still not letting go. Okay, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning. I hope this has been a good Through Theology in a year. I hope it's been a good kind of, I don't know, an addition to your day. However you're doing it, whenever you're doing it, I hope this is good. I'd love to hear your comments. If you can, put comments. Let me know what you think. one of the things that I love to hear, this is one question that I do have, is like I do these PowerPoints, right? Just like this. Whenever I do these PowerPoints, do you like it whenever I have the PowerPoints up for longer and talk about them, or do you like it more whenever I just talk to you like this? Because I don't really know. I don't do this very often. I mean, I've done podcasting forever. I mean, I've done it since 2005, but normally we always just did it through the microphone. And, you know, I'm old school. I didn't even have YouTube back whenever I started this. They didn't have YouTube whenever I started this in 2005. At least I don't think they did. But either way, people didn't do like they do now. Now I'm on YouTube and I'm just kind of messing. I'm old school. So I just like, I'm committed to my old way of doing things. I just get mad. My heart gets mad. Like, why can't we all just listen to the radio like we used to? See, there's the conviction without any rationale behind it, because you know this is better. You know that this has more opportunity, but at the same time, I'm just mad about it. No, I'm not. I'm actually not. I love to be before you guys. I love for you guys to show up. Thank you so much for showing up. Tomorrow, I'm so sorry. Tomorrow we are not going to deal with it. It's going to be Monday, because tomorrow is our question answer session. This is what we're going to look at next time. There we go. I'll just give you a preview, the chart of certainty. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to fill that out as best I can, what it is. And you can think about this. The negative is I do not believe a negative 1 to 10. And then the positive is I do believe a 1 to 10. And then there's the 0. That's true agnosticism. I just don't know. And so you're going to be at every level on these. And I just start thinking about your faith that way. See if you can place your belief. See where you place the resurrection of Christ compared to the inspiration, say, of 2 John or 2 Peter. That's an interesting question. We'll talk about that more next week, and I'll just show you a bunch of examples. You're probably going to get mad at me even more next week, but I think some of you have to be thinking, oh my gosh, this is a relief. It really is a relief. Okay, listen. You've got to go to the Patreon and go to the chat area and give me a question there. There's a place for this. Questions for Through Theology in a Year or Theology Unplugged, one of the two. But questions for that if you want me to answer a question tomorrow. I will go through the questions. Eventually, we're going to be more kind of, I don't know, we'll have more engagement in this thing once I figure everything out. But like I said, I'm old school. I don't even like to figure out how to do the chat. I don't even know how to do it whenever I'm talking, just stop in the middle of it. And during my class, we wait till the very end and everybody asks questions, but I sometimes take questions in the middle. Either way, chat on Patreon. Here's Patreon. Go there. That's C Michael Patton / C Michael Patton after Patreon / C Michael Patton for everything. I guarantee I don't know what website you're at, what social media. Put C Michael Patton on the end, and it's probably me. Because that's what it is. Facebook / C Michael Patton. Twitter / C Michael Patton. Instagram, TikTok. I mean, on and on. What is that other one? That business one? I don't remember. But anyway, that is where you go. And that's where you give me the questions. That's the place where I know I'll get them, because I'll be looking at those today and tonight and putting together the list and figuring out what tomorrow's session is going to be like. And then Monday we'll go through the rest of this. Again, please, if you believe in what we're doing, support us. Okay, we're in need of money right now. We are. You can go to Patreon right there, whether you're a member or not, and see on the first post how to give if you want to give. Okay, we are in need about $1,000. That would be great. One of you give $1,000. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Stop. How do I stop this?